welcome to another episode of Beyond Baseball powered by Prospects Live. I am here with a very incredible guest, Graeme Stinson, pitcher with the Tampa Bay Rays. Graeme, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Jared. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on and kind of dive a bit into your journey. But for just the listeners and the viewers who don't know you, give a little bit of background on who you are, how you got to where you are now in professional baseball and pitching with the Rays.
So I'm from outside Atlanta, Georgia, a little place called Norcross, Petrie Corners area. I went to Norcross High School, graduated in 2016, and then went and played at Duke University. Played there from fall of 2016 until I got drafted in 2019. While I was there, we went to two different regionals. I pitched in the Super Regional at Texas Tech. Had a great time. Got drafted in the fourth round by the Tampa Bay Rays. The first short season, I was hurt with thoracic outlet syndrome. Didn't have surgery, just did rehab. And then from there, went to Instructs in 2019, and then we didn't play in 2020. And spent 2021 in Charleston, low A, and then started in 2022 in Bowling Green, high A, and then finished in Montgomery, double A.
Wow, that's awesome. One thing I want to touch on that you mentioned, you talked about thoracic outlet syndrome and dealing with injuries. And one thing we kind of try to always focus on in this podcast is kind of battling through those moments of adversity and having to overcome injuries. What were some of the things that really helped you during those times?
So for me, it was such a big drop off from peak performance to where I ended up with it. So 2018, I was throwing anywhere from 94, 96, top in 98. And then coming into 2019 and first start 90, 93, and then 88, 90, and then 87, 89, 86, 88. Like last start against Louisville, I was like 83, 86. And so from there, it was kind of one, figuring out what was wrong with me. Two, figuring out the rehab, which was more so after I got drafted. And then from there, it was really having a longer term end goal, which was I want to be where I was. And it's taken me, 3 years now, going into year 4, really, of trying to get all the way back to where I was. Had a couple 95s this past year, a lot more 94s. But overall, it's just been a lot of trial and error for me trying to figure out my body and how my body works, what my body responds to. So I've really treated it as a 3-4 year long science experiment with me as the test subject. So constantly testing and hypothesizing what's going to work and what's going to make me better and more resilient as a human being and also as a pitcher, and really trying to get my body in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, take us into that moment too. When you finally did get back to the mid 90s, what was that feeling like? I kind of have to imagine after going through all that, spending the 3 years, really trying to build back up, and that sense of accomplishment you must have felt during that time.
It's huge. So like it felt like a big weight off my shoulders. It also felt like a big weight off my shoulders when one of our pitching coordinators last year in Charleston came up to me and was like, "Hey, dude, like I know where you were, I know where you're trying to be, but I don't want you to try and be anything but who you are today. Like you've got nasty stuff if you're throwing 90, and you've got nasty stuff if you throw 98. I just want you to go and compete." And so that was huge too. And then finally seeing some results, some output after years of input and experimentation. Like it feels good, and I also know that there's a lot more that I'm capable of. And I don't think I've barely scratched the surface really of what I'm capable of, both on the field, off the field, putting the work in, and I'm still figuring out, what can I add in that's going to make me better.
Yeah, and I love that. It's kind of the thing you touched on too that I also really liked was you talked about kind of defining yourself as a human being too outside of the game. Talk a little bit about that and what some of your passions are away from baseball and kind of how you've developed yourself as a human outside of the game while also trying to make it in the sport that you love.
I would categorize myself as a lifelong learner, and I get interested in things that I'm curious about a lot of things. So I spend a lot of time trying to read about different stuff with science, like what goes into the body and what are you going to get out because of it, and try and help that guide me in what I'm trying to do to improve. Read some journal articles here and there. But in 2020, after we got sent home from COVID, started working with my buddy Eli Herrick on a company that's now called StatStack. We do recruiting using metrics, essentially matching kids, high school athletes, to colleges based off of their data and what information on them is available, anywhere from pitch breaks to GPAs and location and how hard they're hitting the ball, infield velos, all that, and trying to create a picture for high school athletes of where they're going to fit in college.
That's awesome because I think I work on a side job at Major League University, and we're really focused on helping athletes on the mental side of the game. I think a lot of what we hear from high schoolers is they all just want to go play D1. They don't care about playing time. They don't care if their skills or assets or whatever they have and abilities will fit in with that program. But it's cool to hear that you're taking each individual, not just like their characteristics with the numbers, but also knowing the important role the numbers play, but who they are as individual humans and trying to find a fit for the right program.
Absolutely, and we really think that pretty much there's a place for everybody in college baseball.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many programs out there. There's over 1,000 college baseball programs. Uh, Anywhere from D1 to D2, D3, JUCO, NAIA. There's a lot of college baseball programs. There's a lot of baseball teams that need arms. Just because you're not the best guy on your high school team doesn't mean you can't go play college baseball. And I think what we're doing is creating some opportunities for kids to find some places, some diamonds in the rough, some places that where kids are going to go get playing time. They can go have fun, go play college baseball, and give themselves a shot for the next level.
Yeah, I remember working at baseball operations at Nevada. Kids would come into camps and they'd be throwing low 80s, and then all of a sudden they have a growth spurt. The next thing you know, they're hitting 88, 90 miles an hour, whatever they need to get to that next level. So, like, just showing kids that if you go to the community college level route, or if you go to NAIA, it's not the end of your baseball career just because you didn't make it to D1.
There's a lot of guys that I've played with through the Rays org who are really, really good ball players, good pitchers, good position players that didn't play Division One baseball, or they started out at a junior college or NAIA D2, and then figured out a way to get signed and play professional baseball and give themselves a shot. And from that point, once your numbers, the results are gonna show themselves over time. And if you can do that, if you can perform and execute, then you're really gonna have a spot somewhere.
Yeah. Kind of switching gears here, going back to your career, as you kind of have made it through some of the off season this year, what are some things that you're really looking to improve on this off season and kind of going into 2023?
I've got some ideas through my mechanics that are, I think, low hanging fruit, um, as far as coming back from Thrascallet. So the big thing for me, looking at video from when I threw 96, 97, 98 versus where I'm throwing at 92, 94. And that's thoracic extension. So essentially how much I'm able to
Mhm.
allow my core to stretch back and create more force coming forward. And I really think that the upper body strength that I'd pretty much lost when I had bad TOS, I couldn't do 3 push-ups at the time. Back in 2019, it was bad. It was weird. And I finally felt like I got that upper body strength back. Everything was kind of firing again, and so that's been a huge thing for me this off season, is really crushing the upper body, getting strong again. Finally able to do pull-ups again like a normal person, crank out 5 or 6, and so I think I made a ton of strides in that area, and I'm really excited to have a few more months of the off season really crush it and get stronger.
That's awesome. It's good to hear that you're having that build of success, getting ready for 2023. Speaking of the off season, though, I've asked this to every guest. What's your go-to restaurant when you get home for the off season?
Ooh, there's a barbecue spot in between here and my parents have a mountain house in Bryson City, North Carolina. And
Okay.
it's called Haywood Smokehouse, and we always try and stop there when we're on our way up there. Really good pulled pork, really good pulled chicken, brisket, and I've got to stop there every time I'm in that area. And it seems like it's during the off season that I'm able to get up there.
What's the go-to order?
The combo platter, pulled pork and brisket, a little mac and cheese on the side, maybe some fried okra, and maybe a Miller Lite, Coors Light. See what happens.
Love it, love it. Good go-to meal for the barbecue spots. To kind of wrap it up, this is always one of the last questions I ask as we kind of focus on the human side of the game. What advice would you have for future athletes who are going through some of the same things that you had to, kind of powering through adversity or trying to just make it to that next level of professional baseball?
So I think that the biggest thing that has allowed me to really stay focused is this idea of creating a resilience, uh, creating resilience in your mind and in your body. So everything that you do when it comes to baseball should be focused around making a more resilient version of yourself. And
Mm.
that happens with both the mental game and the physical. So on the physical side, you want to be as strong as possible. You want to be uh, not injury prone. You want to be uh, essentially safe from injury by being strong and being mobile and working through full range of motions on everything. And really just trusting the fact that the work is going to show over time, and trusting that, really trusting that. It's hard to do at times because you don't see
Yeah.
results, the day after you work out. You bench 135 one day, you shouldn't expect to bench 185 the next day, or 225, right? And mentally, it's the same way. You've got to have that long term goal of like, where do I want to be in 10 years or 5 years? And be able to stay focused on that and be able to put the blinders on, because there's a ton of outside influences that are going to try and hop in and
Yeah.
really distract you from what you want to do. And we talked about this. I got a good group of buddies in the Rays, and we've talked about this. Is like, it's tempting to go, you know, work another job and make more money. It would probably be a lot easier emotionally and a lot easier physically,
Yeah.
because that security mindset is really tempting. But if you're passionate about something and you know what you're capable of, you've got to stick with it, and you have to just put your head down and do the work, and know that the results are going to come in due time. For me, that's been paramount, and it's what's allowed me to stay focused through adversity and some bumps in the road, to be honest.
Yeah, I liked how you mentioned the mental side of the game. We've had the opportunity to interview a bunch of the mental performance coaches with the Rays and Chris Goodman and a few others. And what they do there, the Rays, I would say, have one of the best mental performance setups. They got a guy at almost every level, and it's awesome to see.
Absolutely, they've been really great, and they're really receptive to feedback and kind of what I'm working on. And Goody hits me up all the time, like, "Hey, Stints, how are you doing on these things that we've been talking about? How are you executing on those goals?" So it's really good to have people in your corner.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And Graham, can't thank you enough for joining us. It's awesome to hear your journey and all the way you've powered through to get to where you are. It's just so cool to see. And we're wishing nothing but the best in 2023.
Thanks, Jared. I really appreciate you having me on.